I'm David Washburn, and I'm pleased to introduce this symposium titled Cognitive Science of Religious Belief and Behavior, a virtual symposium in memory of Kevin J. Eames. Kevin James Eames would have been president of the SEPA this year, but for his untimely death in 2019. I'm grateful to the authors who contributed 4 papers to this session. I'm joined in this first presentation by Savannah Savage, a psychology major who studied with Dr. Eames, by Professor Mike Rulon, longtime chair of the psychology department of Covenant College and a colleague of Kevin's. The title of this first presentation is Kevin Eames, 1960 to 2019, and the Cognitive Psychology of Religion.
Dr. Kevin J. Eames was born on October 15, 1960, and passed away on June 6, 2019. Dr. Eames was best known for his wisdom, kind heart, and his tender personality. He was a husband to his wife Lisa, and he was also a father for their 3 children. Dr. Eames was extremely hardworking and was a lifelong learner. He also was a ruling elder at his home church of St. Elmo Presbyterian in Chattanooga, Tennessee. SEPA was an organization that held a special place in his heart. Dr. Eames contributed a lot of his time and his talents into SEPA by working on committees, volunteering often, and serving as the president-elect until the time of his passing. Even with his declining health, Dr. Eames never failed to assist in SEPA matters and take care of its affairs. After an interview with his mother, we learned some very cool facts about the young Dr. Eames in his early life. As a child, Dr. Eames always excelled in all areas and tried out any and everything he could, including tennis, karate, and piano, which he could play by ear. His mother knew he was a very special boy from the age of 9 months, for this is when he began to speak his first words. As he grew older, pediatricians told the Eames parents that they should consider placing him in a school for the intellectually gifted. The young Dr. Eames was admitted. However, he chose to not attend school there because he wanted to be in a regular school with regular kids. There is no question he was well-liked, gracious, and humble. These qualities probably helped him in achieving the status of salutatorian and senior class president of his high school. Dr. Eames was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 5 years old. It is said that he took the news as well as to be expected. His mother lovingly recalled chasing him around the house to persuade him to take his insulin. At the age of 15, he was interviewed about his life with diabetes. According to Dr. Eames, the reporter began the subsequent newspaper article by saying, "At 15 years old, Kevin Eames has already lived over half his life." For the young Eames, this article opened up his eyes to the fact that we as humans only have a limited amount of time to live. Dr. Eames received his bachelor's in history and graduated as cum laude from Florida State University in 1982. He then went on to complete his master's in community counseling at Georgia State University in 1991. Between the time from receiving his master's to attaining his doctorate, Mr. Eames worked in the field of counseling and gained a lot of experiences from different places. From July to September of 1993, Dr. Eames worked as a psychiatric assessment clinician at PCP Parkwood Psychiatric Hospital. While there, he administered psychiatric assessments and referred emergency room patients to psychiatric facilities. From 1994 to 1997, he gained experience as a group counselor at Georgia State University in Atlanta. There, he planned and led growth groups for their master's level students. Dr. Eames gained experience as a counselor at Gwinnett Place Counseling Associations between August 1993 and August 1994, and the Gwinnett Center for Christian Counseling from January to April of 1992. While gaining experience as a counselor, Dr. Eames assisted in individual, couples, and group counseling. He also supervised interns while working as a counselor. Prior to his doctoral internship at Georgia State University Counseling Center, he became a practicum and advanced practicum counselor. His experience there included individual, career, and couples counseling. Dr. Eames returned to Georgia State University to earn his PhD in counseling psychology in 1999. The title of Dr. Eames' dissertation is Cognitive Appraisals and Internal Dialogue as Predictors of Counselor Clinical Hypothesis Formation. Dr. Eames measured the use of cognitive appraisals and internal dialogue as predictor variables for counselor performance. He found that the client assessment was a significant predictor for the amount of relevant questions a counselor used to affirm their clinical hypothesis. His research also showed that self-doubt had a negative correlation on the confidence and the validity of a counselor's clinical hypothesis of their client. Dr. Gregory L. Brack was the director of this dissertation. Members on the dissertation committee included Dr. Catherine J. Brack, Dr. Joseph Hill, and Dr. Joanna White. After earning his Ph.D., Dr. Eames took the position of an assistant professor of psychology and director of graduate education at Dordt College in Sioux Center, Iowa. This role allowed for him to manage the Masters of Education program for in-service teachers. He worked at Dordt College from July 2001 to July 2003. After a short time at Dordt College, Dr. Eames joined the psychology faculty at Covenant College.
I am pleased and honored to be able to share with you my experiences with Kevin Eames, whose sudden death caused great loss to his family, the Covenant College community, and to SEPA, who lost their newly elected president. Initially, Kevin came to Covenant College to administer a Lilly grant, but quickly volunteered to teach a course in organizational psychology for us in the psychology department. Kevin was candid about being a camel trying to get his nose into the tent. He physically came from the administration building to the psychology department to be among psychology students. Teaching and being among students was his expressed desire, and he was willing to pay his administrative dues to get there. In 2007, he began teaching a very popular cross-cultural psychology course and continued teaching that course every year. Kevin continued teaching in our department while he directed the Office of Institutional Effectiveness and was instrumental in helping the college renew our SACS accreditation. Thereupon, he finally physically moved into the psych department in 2008 while still wearing two hats, administration and faculty. However, our psychology students had more access to him, which they thoroughly appreciated. Eventually, he vacated his administrative duties for a more exclusive faculty-student involvement. He added courses in sensitive areas for a Christian college, human sexuality, and the psychology of religion, and that interest led him to authoring a book on cognitive psychology of religion. These also became very popular courses. However, he was also a methodologist. He taught research methods and enthusiastically mentored a large number of students through their research projects and their research presentations at SEPA. During this time at Covenant, he was actively involved in SEPA and brought students to SEPA yearly. His involvement and contributions were obvious and valued, culminating in Kevin being elected president of SEPA. Kevin's personal and professional life blended seamlessly. His interest in the psychology of religion was part of his personal religious commitments. And as well as mentoring psychology students in academic areas, he also served as an elder in his St. Elmo Presbyterian Church. He was a winsome ambassador. He presented potentially threatening content areas in psychology to Covenant College students and to local churches. He presented committed Christian college students to the Southeastern Psychology Association through their empirical research. And he represented Christian college psychology departments to the other heads of psychology departments in the Southeast. As a colleague, Kevin was a special person. Kevin loved to read and shared his books with enthusiasm. His home and office were lined with bookshelves, and he was quick to recommend books to read and was willing to lend. Kevin loved his wife Lisa and two daughters Hillary and Hannah, and he opened his home to share them with Covenant students. The warmth of his home and hospitality were highlights of the academic year. Covenant College students knew he loved his family, loved his Lord, loved psychology, and loved the students studying it. They could count on his endorsement. With Psych students in his home, they knew him as a wonderful cook who enjoyed making shrimp and grits, jambalaya, and really good coffee laced with Eagle brand condensed milk. Kevin's home and family were a warm and welcome haven for students. Travel with Kevin was always memorable. He prioritized traveling with his students to professional meetings and sharing the joy of seeing his students expanding their world of psychology while being challenged with ideas they were uncomfortable with. Being religiously committed as well as academically honest, Kevin also often assured students that the examination of controversial or threatening ideas is not to be feared. And while traveling, Kevin had an agenda that included finding some significant new experience, usually around food, to his fellow travelers. He had a gift for finding novel restaurants and novel menu items. Meals with Kevin, no matter where, were a delight. So our travels to the SEPA conventions were always a highlight of the year, and a time that students reflected on continually until the next convention. He was excited to see the academic challenges that students took on, especially as he guided them through their senior year integration projects, where students took on the examination of some psychological topic within a faith-based framework. It was rewarding to him to see the growth that students showed in both their academic and personal lives, and he communicated that to his students. Graduation was always an emotional time that recognized the significant impact he had on the lives of these students. I remember the advice one of the chairs of another psychology department shared concerning hiring a new colleague. Spend all your energy and resources to find the right colleague to join your faculty. Otherwise, you'll spend even more energy to get rid of that person when the fit isn't right. Kevin was a competent administrator, academician, ambassador, faculty member, mentor, and willing servant. And Kevin was the best colleague.
Across his too short career, Professor Kevin Eames authored 25 publications and gave at least 11 professional presentations, many at the SEPA. The scholarly product of which he was most proud was his 2016 book, The Cognitive Psychology of Religion, published by Waveland Press. The book, which was dedicated to his son Daniel Eames, who died in 2013, presents a brief but thorough summary of the role of basic perceptual processes, the mechanisms of concept formation and organization, the functions of attention, learning, memory, and other cognitive constructs that allow humans to consider, to believe in, and to have relationship with the sacred supernatural. In the book, Professor Eames provides an introduction to the theories and key evidence from the cognitive science of religion. He also presents a theistic model of religious belief and behavior, one anchored in the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas and John Calvin. Eames takes seriously Calvin's notion of sensus divinitatis, the suggestion that people across cultures and across time have sought God because there is indeed a God who wants to be known. Eames quotes without objection the response by Calvin to the view that religion is a human invention, noting that whereas clever men have devised very many things in religion by which to inspire the common folk with reverence and to strike them with terror, they would never have achieved this if men's minds had not already been imbued with a firm conviction about God, from which the inclination toward religion springs as from a seed. Whether one believes that religion is all in our heads, or, as he did, that religion has a corresponding external reality, Professor Eames contended that religion at least begins with our heads, with a cognitive architecture that predisposes humans toward religious beliefs and behaviors. Theories and findings are discussed in the cognitive psychology of religion without bias, prejudice, or defensiveness. One could easily read the entire 7-chapter review without a strong sense that the author preferred some arguments over others, except to the degree that the original arguments had been established on the basis of weak scientific methodology, or if they had extended beyond the support of their empirical data. The essential contributions of Azari and Barrett, Bloom and Boyer, Dawkins and Dennett, Fowler and Fraser, Gould and Granquist, Guthrie, Hood and Hill, Jeeves and Brown, Kellerman and Kirkpatrick, Lawson and Macaulay, Newberg and Otto, Persinger, Platinga, Smith, Sperber, Spilka, Stark, Strebe, Taylor, Whitehouse, Wilson, and many, many others are discussed with great clarity. Eames provides fair treatment to the theoretical positions that he reviewed, seamlessly integrating quotations from the original sources, evidence from research findings, examples from the various theorists, and illustrations from Job in the Old Testament, Ananias and Sapphira in the New Testament, and dozens of other equally appropriate references from the Bible. The question of how we, as biological neurocognitive organisms, come to ponder the supernatural and divine remains an interesting one, a question that cannot be divorced from our growing understanding of embodied cognition. Recent years have witnessed exciting developments in the cognitive science of religion. You will hear some of these developments in the other presentations within this symposium. We miss Kevin Eames and are saddened that his contributions to our understanding of the psychology of religion were cut short by his sudden homegoing. But he has left a lasting professional legacy in the students who were inspired by him, the colleagues who were honored to work with him, and in the cognitive science of religion as a reminder of his scholarship and passion. On behalf of my co-authors, thank you for your attention to this presentation. We want to acknowledge Lisa Eames and Kevin Eames's mother, Jill Eames Hansen, for information provided for this biography. My co-authors and I hope that you will also listen to the other talks in this virtual memorial symposium. James Van Slyke from Fresno Pacific University has recorded a presentation titled Evolutionary Theories and the Future of the Cognitive Science of Religion. Larissa Heifetz from Columbia University will give a live-streamed presentation titled Righteous O You, O Lord, Children's and Adults' Concepts of a Moralizing God. And Robert Macaulay and George Graham have recorded a talk titled Moral Thought-Action Fusion, Ritualized Behaviors, and Scrupulosity.